Okay, good day, Necessful members. This is Ryan Wirtz, your Necessful president speaking, and I would like to take this opportunity to warmly welcome you to the second annual pre-conference webinar, which is being held as a preliminary event to the 2015 Necessful Annual Business Meeting, which we will hold in San Diego, California, beginning next Tuesday. The basic purpose of this meeting is to take care of the organization's ongoing old business in order to free up valuable time at our on-site meeting in California for additional learning and networking opportunities. While a web format is admittedly not quite as engaging as an actual face-to-face meeting, it does allow us to work through a required portion of our yearly program in a fairly efficient way. We promise to be upbeat and convey all of the positive energy associated with the organization's many recent successes and advancements. And before I continue, I would like to not only extend a greeting to all Necessful members who are in attendance today, as well as any of our special guests who will be attending in the latter portion of our meeting, but I would also like to extend a special welcome to any new Necessful members who might be joining us for today's meeting. And we do have many new Necessful members this year, perhaps more than at any time in the organization's past. Given the general warmth and congeniality of our Necessful members, this may not be the very best way to greet you for the very first time, but please do know that your presence with us here today is both valued and appreciated, and we do look forward to an opportunity in the near future to greet you in person and welcome you into the Necessful family. So I'd like to begin the presentation by making you aware of the fact that we are broadcasting this pre-conference webinar over 5 different time zones. Of course, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon here in the eastern portion of the United States, where I'm located in Ohio, but we have folks joining us all the way from Hawaii, where it is 8 in the morning or shortly thereafter, I guess. So no matter where you're at in the country, please know that we are very, very pleased to have you with us today. Just a few points of order so that we can proceed smoothly through today's agenda, which you may have already accessed. If you look at your control tab, there is, right above the chat feature and right below the attendees feature, there is a handouts location where you can access the agenda for today's meeting. And you may, if you are lucky enough to have double screens, you may want to have that up on your second screen. As Anne-Marie mentioned, this broadcast is being recorded, and we will try to get this up as soon as possible following our meeting on the Necessful YouTube channel. It does take a few days for a recording of this size to process before it can be posted, so just please be patient with us. Also, any of the materials from today, including the agenda, these slides, which you're currently viewing on your own screens, any handouts will all be available to you through the Necessful Weebly site, and that address is listed. It's necessful.weebly.com/webinars.html. And I would invite anyone who has not visited the Necessful Weebly site recently to take a peek. There's an increasing amount of interesting materials being posted there. Please do note that you are currently muted. That's not because we don't want to hear from you. It's simply because with so many people online, the background noise would make this a very trying experience. So we encourage you to use the chat box. Anne-Marie is monitoring the chat box, and as questions come up, please do ask them via the chat box. She will interrupt whoever is speaking and pass that question on so that it can be addressed immediately. And of course, I just remind you that this portion of our meeting is to deal with kind of the old business of the organization. If you do have any questions relating to any new business of the organization, do be aware that that portion of our annual meeting will be held in San Diego next week. So I just want to differentiate between what we're doing today and the continuing business that we will take care of, I believe, on Wednesday afternoon in San Diego. I believe Anne Marie's already talked you through the controls, but just one last look at where that chat or questions pane is. On my control panel, it actually says chat, not questions, but same principle. Answer your questions in, and please do pass those on to us today. As Anne Marie and I have both mentioned, the agenda for today is in the handout section, which appears right above where the chat function is on your control panel. Also today we will be voting on 2 items. We'll be voting to approve the minutes from last year's annual meeting, and we will also be voting to approve the treasurer's report during this meeting. A reminder that only regular and retired regular members are eligible to vote per the Necessful bylaws. Once I have asked for a motion and I've gotten a motion and a second, we will be unmuted. And if there is any discussion, that would be the time before we conduct the poll or take the vote, as the case may be, to approve those 2 items. And I would simply ask if there are any associate members on board today. I thank you also for being with us, and just remind you not to vote at that time. I want to take a moment to recognize all of the members of the Necessful Executive Board. You're going to hear me say several times throughout this broadcast, and I'm sure again in San Diego, what a wonderful and amazing group of professionals this Necessful Board is, and what an extreme pleasure it has been to serve alongside them. You have so many wonderful and very capable people looking out for your backs and taking care of your financial resources, and you should be very proud of each and every one of these individuals. So joining us today from the Maine Department of Education is our Acting Vice President, Jay Kettner. Of course, Jay stepped in back in the spring when Robert Crawford from West Virginia had to step down from the position because of a change in his work responsibilities and job description. And we will be getting Jay's report here in a little bit. Also joining us today is Lynn Fulton Archer from the Delaware Department of Education, our very capable secretary who is a meticulous keeper of our notes and keeps us on our toes. And joining us from the Virginia Department of Education is our treasurer, Lisa Harris. Lisa also serves as our de facto membership coordinator. Joining us from the Oklahoma State Department of Education is our dear friend Dessa Dawson, serving as our immediate past president, and now, as we all may have heard, as our actual president-elect for 2017. I just want to congratulate Dessa on behalf of all the Necessful members for this accomplishment, and I'm sure, like you or like me, you all are looking forward to working with her in this new capacity. And finally, working from behind the scenes today, making this all come off effortlessly, is your President-elect, Anne Marie Gunter, from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And just a sincere word of thanks to Anne Marie for all that she has done to help put this webinar together behind the scenes. So, it is time for me to start off with my presidential report, and this year I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as I can. If you recall, last year I began my report using the image that you see right now on the slide to kind of convey my overall take on the status of the organization. My take on Necessful's organizational and fiscal health in 2014 as a first-year president was probably best characterized by this very peaceful scene where our Necessful balloon was sailing along smoothly through clear skies clear skies at the break of another beautiful day. So let's skip forward a year to NASSFL 2015. This year, we are still gliding along ever so smoothly, but this has been a very busy and fast-paced year, one that's gone by in the blink of an eye, not unlike the high-speed bullet train you see blitzing past in this image. Our members have been increasingly involved in regional and national initiatives, and the organization is being consulted on an increasing basis by an expanding group of stakeholders. From a fiscal standpoint, as you will hear soon from our treasurer, the organization is grounded in financial stability and benefiting from the careful decision-making of a board that has distinguished itself these past 2 years by always getting the best bang for your buck. The NASSFL presidency is a time-intensive job, if it's anything. In addition to overseeing the day-to-day operations of the organization, which does involve a considerable amount of customer service in the form of dozens of daily email messages and many phone calls a week, there are numerous other responsibilities as shown on this slide. Of course, every month we do hold an executive board meeting. We've been holding those on the third Tuesday of every month. We have met monthly since our last annual meeting in San Diego, and we also have one special pre-conference meeting just last week to kind of make sure that we have crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's prior to the upcoming meeting in San Diego and prior to today's pre-conference meeting. Those meetings generally last anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. And we do take care of an awful lot of business with great efficiency during those meetings. I just, again, like to give a shout out to my board members for such professional conduct when we're all together and for such great conversation. Of course, we all work with the various committee chairs on the different initiatives in which NASSFL is involved. We have many collaborative activities going with longtime NASSFL partners such as the College Board, ACTFL, JMCL Nicholas, NADSFL, this year with the American Councils, with the SEAL of Biliteracy Task Force, and with other organizations. This year we did create an ad hoc committee here just in recent months to create a much needed guidance document on H-1B related issues. Of course, as you know, many of our states and many districts are in the process of growing dual language immersion programs, but of course immersion teachers are so hard to come by, and we're increasingly dependent on finding foreign talent to staff those positions in many of our schools. And you may not realize it, but some years ago, the way the H-1B lottery rule was interpreted by the government changed and became it made it much more difficult for these teachers to be sponsored under an H-1B visa, which has always been kind of the go-to visa in order to get long-term stability in programs that are hosting foreign talent. So working with NADSFL and JMCL Nicholas, we put together a committee, and hopefully Brandy Mao will be with us. She chaired that committee for us on behalf of all of us, and she'll tell us a little bit more about that work. Also, the president seems to be the one, along with the secretary, who works with the various state organizations that are seeking to secure the services of a world language supervisor. Over the course of the past year, I have had the pleasure to work with groups in Arkansas, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Nevada, and Rhode Island, all of which we're looking towards securing the services of a state supervisor. As you may know, that we do now have a member from Arkansas, who we are very glad to have in the NASSFL family, and we are still working diligently with those 4 other states to bring about the addition of a world language supervisor to those departments of education. We had a very interesting trans-Pacific dialogue over the course of the past year with language supervisors in New Zealand. It just so happened that a friend and colleague of mine here in the Columbus area received a Fulbright scholarship and spent fall of last year in New Zealand, and during the course of her stay and her research there, she met the organization that provides supervision to world language teachers throughout that country, and thought maybe it would be a great idea to introduce me to them. And out of that introduction came a series of webinars that the Nacessful Board held with our colleagues in New Zealand, where we were working on learning about language learning and the different challenges that we face in each of our countries, and we shared some of the different activities that each group was involved in supporting their members or their constituents. It was a very energizing conversation. My big takeaway from that conversation was that we think perhaps we're not the best in terms of language teaching in comparison to some other countries in the world, but actually in comparison to our friends in New Zealand, we discovered that maybe we're not doing so bad after all. We did invite those colleagues to join us in San Diego, but unfortunately funding was not there this year for them to come. They have indicated though some interest in perhaps joining us next year in Boston. So we'll see if that continues. But we are reaching out across the ocean, so to speak, and making connections with others abroad and having some very fruitful dialogues. Of course, we've been spending a lot of time over the course of the past couple of months planning for the upcoming conference in San Diego, and of course for this webinar. And we are dedicated to providing other opportunities for learning and networking aside from this webinar and our annual meeting. We were able to hold a professional development webinar in October on global competency recognition, and I hope many of you were able to join in that day. Unfortunately, I was on the road for a long scheduled meeting and I was not able to be with you, but I have listened to the recording of that meeting, and it was a great one. And we are looking forward to offering additional professional development opportunities via webinar over the months ahead in 2016. Part of my presidential responsibilities are to assist with the review of proposals. I do represent Nacessful on the Program Planning Committee for the National Chinese Language Conference. And I also have been serving both last year and this year as a reviewer for convention proposals and also most recently for the issue, the January-February issue of the Language Educator. I think I reviewed something like 11 articles for that publication. So there are other things that go on behind the scenes I just wanted to make you aware of. And then, of course, throughout the last 2 years, but in a more focused way during the last couple of months, I've been working with Anne-Marie Gunter to ensure a very smooth presidential transition at the end of this year. And I am happy to report that Anne-Marie is more than ready to pick up the reins and continue to move this organization forward. Overall, the organization continues to be sought after as a collaborative partner by a variety of stakeholders, and our long-term relationships with entities such as ACTFL, NASFL, College Board, and JNCL Nicholas are on very solid footing. Our collaborative efforts range from LinguaFolio-related development activities to international teacher recruitment and retention efforts to state and local seal of biliteracy initiatives to partnerships with state language organizations seeking to secure the services of state-level supervisors. We truly are becoming one of the nation's preeminent go-to organizations for information and assistance on a wide range of topics and initiatives, and I hope you are as proud of that fact as I am. From a fiscal standpoint, we're definitely not a rich organization, but we are a fiscally comfortable organization, and we've certainly instituted policies and practices to safeguard our financial well-being and to maintain a balanced budget. Our bylaws continue to serve the needs of the organization, although I would like to mention that during the new business portion of our upcoming meeting in San Diego, I will be bringing forward two areas that your executive board feel merit your attention for some. One is an addition to the bylaws, and one would be a slight amendment to the bylaws just for the efficiency of the organization. So you can look forward to hearing more about those in San Diego. I have to tell you that I am so very lucky as an Assessful president in that this board operates like a well-oiled machine. All of your board members execute their positions with great professionalism, and I have always been able to count on them for careful and very thoughtful debate on all issues that have come before us. And assuming that the slate of candidates put forward by the nominating committee is approved, I do fully expect this board to continue to operate with the same degree of expertise and efficiency in the future, despite the upcoming presidential transition. As Assessful continues to engage with a wider range of stakeholders, it's been absolutely essential in my mind that the organization put its best face forward to the nation. Our face, if you will, is the Assessful website, which is being visited with increasing frequency by an ever-increasingly diverse group of stakeholders. I'm thrilled that we will soon have a new website for use by both our members and our outside visitors. Your website refresh committee, chaired by Kathy Shelton, has worked hard over the past year to incorporate all the feedback that you've given into the design of our new website. Kathy will be bringing you up to speed on that initiative in just a little bit when all of the various Assessful committee chairs report out. In closing, I see continuing good health for our organization, and I see that being dependent on two key factors. First of all of you becoming more involved in the organization, especially in terms of serving on or chairing any of our committees and running for positions on the executive board, and also as long as there is continued strong leadership in the future. As you know, we are in the midst of an election, and if you are a regular or retired regular member and you haven't yet voted, I would like to remind you that the election of Assessful officers continues through this weekend through Monday. Please do take a moment to log on to the members only section of our website. Click on the poll tab at the top of the page, and please vote to approve the slate of candidates put forward by the Assessful nominating committee. I dare say that if the slate of candidates is approved, strong leadership will be all but assured over the next several years. And that does conclude my presidential report. I would now like to turn everything over to our very capable secretary, Lynn Fulton Archer.
Lynn, you are unmuted.
Hi everyone, thank you so much. So my report as secretary is just kind of some highlights of the operations and the goings on of the organization for the last 12 months or so. So Ryan, if you could flip to the next slide. Just in summary, in 2015, we have held 10 regular monthly board meetings. As Ryan mentioned in his president's report, we have also held 2 board webinars with counterparts from New Zealand. We have held one special website refresh webinar for the board and for the website refresh committee. And as Ryan mentioned, we've held one general webinar for membership on global competencies. As far as special correspondence, Ryan alluded to some of these things as we went through. We have sent letters to Congress regarding the reauthorization of ESEA or the recrafting thereof, letters to state governments supporting world language supervisor positions, and as a regular part of our practice, we do send condolence cards and special cards to members when warranted. Part of my role as secretary is to record the goings-on of those monthly board meetings. We're very much looking forward to the to having a new website, which will make it easier to upload and share those minutes on a regular basis with members should you like to see and read about what's going on in between our annual meetings. One of the things that I also do as part of the Secretary's report on a monthly basis is summarize a list of all presidential initiated emails to members and to the organization in general. So, so that's kind of where we have been over the course of this year. Many thanks to all of you as members for taking the time to read the minutes of the annual meeting. I will be sending out the minutes of this coming annual meeting in January to get feedback and to get corrections done to those in a more timely manner, closer to the actual meeting. And again, thank you to all of you who have sent me photographs and notices of awards and events and accomplishments over the course of the year. I am almost finished with putting together the slideshow for the annual meeting, and once that is complete, then I will be turning that into a video recording so that for anyone who's not able to see it in person in San Diego, you'll be able to see the summary of those accomplishments through the NSSFL YouTube channel in January once we're able to get that, once I'm able to get that recorded and posted. So thank you all very much, and that's all I have for my portion of the meeting.
And Lynn, if you would, I'm going to allow you to go ahead and lead us through the process of approving the 2014 annual meeting minutes. So if you would enable your audio again, and if you would open it up to the floor. And Maria, if we could mute everyone, we do need to conduct this formal bit of business here.
So over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, you have all had the opportunity to approve to provide comment on the 2014 minutes. I received several emails back with some corrections. All of those corrections have been made and incorporated into the current version of the minutes. And so I would ask for to call the question, are you in favor of approving the 2014 minutes from the annual meeting as presented?
And I will go ahead and launch our voting poll feature that we have. Instead of unmuting every single person who's on the line, if you'd like to be unmuted to make a motion or have some discussion, please raise your hand and I will unmute you as I see hands go up.
We do need a formal motion from the membership to approve the 2014 meeting minutes.
Tom, you are unmuted.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. We have a motion. Would anyone care to second this motion?
Dessa, you are unmuted.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a second. Any discussion?
Helga, you are unmuted. Greg, you are unmuted.
No discussion. I was just going to either do the motion or the second.
Thank you, Helga. Greg, did you have anything to share? Any discussion?
No.
All right, if there is no discussion, then let's go ahead and take a vote to approve the revised set of 2014 annual meeting minutes.
And you should be able to see the vote on your screen and just simply click whatever vote you would like to cast. We are at 80% having voted. Please go ahead and cast your vote so we get everyone in. Don is reminding us that regular SEA and retired SEA members may vote in these votes. And I'm getting confirmation from another member that associate members do not vote. All right, it looks like we are in for the votes. Go ahead and close the polls. Just so you know, the GoToMeeting has some functionality on the backside here that allows us to open and close polls and then to share the results. So please see those coming up on your screen now. All right, Ryan and Lynn, you can go ahead and continue the meeting.
Great, thank you all very much, and I will try to provide succinct minutes again this year and get those again out to you for 2015 in January of 2016. Thank you.
Lisa, you are unmuted.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's really very great, busy time for all of us right now, and I'm very happy to be here to present to you the annual Treasurer's Report. I did want to start off just by saying what a pleasure it has been to be the treasurer for this organization and to have an opportunity to speak one-on-one with so many of you that I would not have had that opportunity had I not been serving in this role. I've been very pleased with the way that the Wild Apricot has been incorporated into our processes, and the ability to accept payments online has been running very smoothly this year. You can see by our balances that we did end the year in the black, and so we are not going to be proposing any increase in membership dues or fees for the upcoming conference. The major expenditures have been recorded on the Treasurer's Report as posted. And this is just a reminder that this does not include any expenditures that are related to our grant work, as those are kept through a separate set of books. And we do have a healthy bank balance, including some remaining funds in our money market account that continues to draw a small amount of interest each month for us. In addition to that, our tax reports have all been filed. All appropriate 1099s and 990 forms have been filed, including our 990EZ, and all of its schedules have been submitted to the IRS to maintain our nonprofit status. For our membership report, we have a healthy membership continuing. We currently have 90 members on the roll, of which at least 3 that I know of will be coming off at this archive period because for one reason or another they are not renewing. They have either left their position and are no longer in charge of world languages, or they are moved on to a different part of their agency where world language is not in their field anymore. We also have a very healthy balance of members who have already paid for the upcoming year. We have a total of 80 of those 90 that are on the roster that have already paid, and I believe I saw 2 more came through this morning, so that's probably going to be 82 now who have already paid for their membership for this coming year. And as Ryan said, we do have a number of new members. We were very pleased to welcome members replacing some of those that have moved on. And so we have a good balance of regular, retired, and associate members who are participating in the organization. So as you can see from the report, we are very healthy financially. And again, I'm very pleased to be working with you. I've heard from a number of you saying you want to apologize for bothering me, but I want to put out right now that it is never a bother. You may contact me anytime. I know that sometimes the number and array of logins gets confusing between our member website and the Wild Apricot, and I am happy to help anytime. Please don't ever hesitate to contact me for assistance if you need it, and I'm happy to do so. And if there are any questions about the Treasurer's Report, I would be happy to answer any.
Lisa, this is Anne Marie. We have a question coming in asking for a brief explanation of where restricted/grant funding comes from.
Okay. Right, so restricted and grant funding comes from our work that is done for a specific purpose. So if funds are provided, for example, by our College Board contract with the express purpose of training guest teachers, that is kept in a separate account and fund so that that money is only used for the training of the guest teachers. And then once the remaining amount of the what we've been contracted for at the end of the grant period, that gets moved into what is called our restricted fund. And then when it's needed for operating expenses, then it can be moved out into operating expenses once we have assured that all the grant-related activities have been completed. Okay, any other questions?
I don't see at this time. If someone does have a question and they'd like to voice it, please raise your hand and I will unmute you. Don is unmuted. Go ahead, Don.
Oh, no, I'm all set. I already asked my question. Thanks.
Okay. Don was the one who asked the question about the grants and so forth.
Okay. Did I answer it sufficiently?
Yes. Yes, thanks.
Okay, if there are no other questions, can we go ahead on to the motion to approve the Treasurer's Report? Can we call for someone to make a motion?
I saw Don's hand again.
I make a motion that we accept the Treasurer's Report.
Thank you, Don. Would anyone like to second the motion?
I saw about 4 hands go up. I am unmuting Phyllis.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Phyllis. Is there any further discussion on the motion before the membership to approve the Treasurer's Report for the 2014-2015 fiscal year? All right, if there is no further discussion, then let's go ahead and open the polling feature. And again, we would ask regular and regular retired members to vote to approve the Treasurer's Report. And we would ask our associate members to just stand by for the moment, please.
Let's go about 10 more seconds on the poll. Please go ahead and get your vote in if you have not already done so. All right, thank you. We're going to close out the poll and share the results.
And Anne-Marie, I'm not able to see full results, so if you could describe those results orally, I would be grateful.
Very well. To the question of are you in favor of approving the treasurer's report as presented, 92% responded yes and 8% abstained from the vote. There were no votes.
All right, thank you very much. So the motion passes, and the treasurer's report for the 2014-2015 fiscal year is approved. And Lisa, just on behalf of all of us, thank you for taking care of us financially. You are doing an outstanding job, and I know that I'm speaking for everyone. I tell you how much we appreciate your work.
It has been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, at this time, Anne-Marie, if you would come out from behind the scenes and give your report as president-elect.
Thank you, Ryan. I have a fairly short report today, as well as the call for the 2016 Lead with Necessful sessions to share with you. Go ahead and bring up the next slide, Ryan. First, I want to share with you a little bit about our online space. We do have a Weebly site, the Necessful Weebly, at ncsssfl.weebly.com. This is a temporary site until the website is refreshed, as Ryan noted earlier. And we needed to have this temporary space because we need a new sharing space. One thing we ran into was on the old website, the old members only space was overloaded and it locked up. We were so gracious with sharing everything we were presenting and doing that we overdid on the system, and we were not able to add anything further, and so we needed a sharing space like a Weebly. Our Weebly site currently houses all meeting materials and ongoing projects. So for example, if you go on the Weebly site, you will clearly see under meeting materials there's a space for our 2014 annual meeting and all the presentations and things that were done last year. There is also a space for this year's annual meeting being prepared, and then we have a whole section just for the webinars we've done as a group. This Necessful Weebly site also comes with a Google Drive and a Gmail address, and that's where we sort of hang materials on that Google Drive so they don't overload other spaces, or we don't have to put them in individuals' Google Drives around the country, literally, and link them to our Weebly site. Everything is kept in one location. And by the way, if you are presenting this year at the annual meeting, we will be asking that you share your presentations, materials, and handouts for that Google Drive so that we can link them to the Weebly site and everything can be accessible to our members. In addition, we also have a Necessful YouTube channel. It is available on the shortened bit.ly link that you see there, bit.ly/necessfulyoutube. You can also find it on YouTube if you search for it. This is where, once we have a recording like on our webinar today or the webinar we did on October 1st, we process that webinar and we upload it on the YouTube channel so that you can watch it from there. This makes it much more easily accessible than even putting it on our Weebly site and in our Google Drive, although we do keep some copies of things there just in case. But you can always go out to the YouTube channel, search for Necessful, and find our meetings posted. Finally, we've been working to have more virtual connections as we go so that we can stay in touch with each other and share information the way we do in the face-to-face meetings, even when we're not together. That is the purpose of, for example, this GoTo account that we now have. This webinar is being hosted in the Necessful NADSFul GoTo account. We do share this with our district supervisor colleagues from across the country. And we can have two types of gatherings in our GoTo account. The first is a GoTo meeting, and that's where you schedule and send connection information to attendees. That's the kind of meeting we have when we have our monthly executive board meetings, for example. And one person goes in and schedules it as the conference organizer in the GoTo account and then gets a series of links to send to everyone, and everyone uses the same link to access the meeting. The contrast to that is what we're doing today with GoToWebinar. This is where we schedule a webinar and we send a registration link for attendees to register themselves. That allows you to receive a unique connection link to access the webinar, and that means that when you use that link and log in, your name appears as it did when you registered, and you have all voting privileges and things like that that you need. The GoToWebinar system also sends reminders, as you've probably seen today, yesterday, and last week, depending on when you registered, and it will also send a follow-up email. So that is what we use for our pre-conference webinars like we're doing today. That is what we also use for our October 1st webinar. Please be aware if you are working with NCESFL, for example, in the capacity of a committee chair, you're very welcome to use the GoTo account to conduct your meetings, either the GoTo meeting portion or the GoTo webinar. Because we are sharing this account with NASFL and we got a discount as nonprofit groups, this is very affordable, and it is something we want to put to good use either for group webinars like we're doing today or for meetings that need to take place with any group working within NCESFL and across the country. All right. That's all I have for that. Let's talk briefly about our Lead with NCESFL sessions at this year's ACTFL convention. Please note that we have 3 Lead with NCESFL sessions at this year's convention. The first one is on Friday, November 20th. You see the time, and that's being led by Ryan Wirtz. It's about LinguaFolio. On Saturday, there are 2 NCESFL-led sessions, and they are running at the same time. And they are about teacher effectiveness and growth measures with myself, Lisa Harris, and Jay Kettner, and then also transforming school cultures through global education, which is being led by Gerhard Fischer and Helga Faciano. Those items are also available in the ACTFL app, and I hope you have downloaded that already on a device that you're going to use if you're going to the ACTFL convention. If you have a smart device, you can get that information in your app store and just searching for ACTFL 2015 to install. It is free. If you'd like to get it on a different kind of device or go online, it's under tripbuilder.com/ACTFL 2015. Please be aware that the company that does this also works with other organizations. So I know, for example, the State Language Association here in North Carolina worked with this same company and was able to provide an app to their participants this year. So that's something to keep in mind, not only as we do ACTFL conventions, but other kinds of meetings and gatherings that may benefit from having an app and having materials available. Please know that you can also access the materials and things like that, the session handouts, through this app. And for those who will be presenting at ACTFL this year, this is just a quick reminder to please put your materials online so they can be accessed through this app for all attendees. Okay, next slide. All right, that brings us to our call for 2016 Lead with NCESFL sessions. You can see on the screen that the next ACTFL convention will be in Boston, Massachusetts on November 18th to 20th next fall. The call for sessions, call for proposals just came out on Monday, and those are due on Wednesday, January the 13th, so exactly 2 months from today. If you do decide to submit an NCESFL-led session, please include the phrase NCESFL-led session somewhere in the content and purpose and/or your description of your session. The link on the screen shows you where information about the 2016 convention can be found, including the entire call for proposals document that has a lot of detail, as well as the rubric that's used to assess proposals that are submitted. We would encourage everyone to get with a colleague or 2 and submit a session to share the work that you're doing in your state or in your region or around the country through your NCESFL associations.
And Anne Marie, if I could just interject, not only including the phrase NCESFL-led session in content and purpose or description phrases, but in the actual title of the session, it would be nice if everyone would begin with, lead with NCESFL hyphen and then the rest of your title. That makes it very apparent that it is a NCESFL supported session.
Very true. Great. That is it for the President-elect's report.
Okay, thank you, Anne Marie, so much for your report. And I just want to reiterate what Anne Marie said and encourage everyone to consider submitting a proposal for the upcoming ACTFL convention in Boston in 2016. and considering putting that in under the Lead with Successful NOMA. It is something that I think catches people's attention, and as our reputation grows, I think it's important to let people know which sessions are ours, because I think that speaks to a certain quality of presentation that convention goers have come to expect from our sessions. So thank you, Anne-Marie. Great report. All right, I'd like to return it over now to Jay Kempner, our acting Vice President from the Maine Department of Education. And take it away, Jay.
Jay, you are unmuted. Please hold for just a second. We seem to be having some technological issues. I'm seeing if we can correct that. Just a second. Jay is able to hear us, and it looks like his microphone is working. I've suggested that he switch to phone and then back to microphone to see if that would reset his audio.
Switch to.
And Jay, we are able to hear you a little bit. So go ahead and speak if you can.
Is that working now?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
I have no idea what happened, but thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, good morning, and greetings from the easternmost state. As acting vice president, I'm happy to report that we've had very strong turnout of sponsors who have come forward to help make our annual meeting possible, and we have some great events planned that I'm anxious to share with you, as I think they all promise to be a good time and have been several weeks in the making. First, I'll give you a little breakdown of how sponsorship was structured this year, and then I'll share some details of some of the social events we have planned in California. So the slide you see in front of you now is basically our sponsorship schedule by levels. We wouldn't be language people if we didn't align sponsorship to proficiency levels. So we start at the intermediate level and work the way up to distinguished. This pretty much lays out what sponsors receive at each level based on their monetary donation. The baseline recognition is at the intermediate level with a plaque of appreciation, recognition in NADSFL and accessible booths, recognition on the website with a link to the company site, and recognition of the conference program. As sponsors move up through the scale, additional benefits are added, namely time to speak to membership at the conference during our meals and breaks, and then advertisements in the conference programs of various sizes depending on sponsor level, as well as associate memberships in NADSFL, access to the NADSFL membership list, and a sign in the ACTFL Expo booth. And you can advance the slide. I would like to invite all of you to what promises to be a fun kickoff Tuesday evening. We have a dinner reservation at Spike Africa's Fresh Fish Grill and Bar. The reservation is for 7 p.m. For $60, we've arranged a 3-course prefix menu, which will offer members a salad and soup course, an entree, and a dessert. This includes, the $60 includes non-alcoholic beverages, tax, and gratuity. Members will be welcome to pay for alcoholic beverages as ordered separately. And we also have some various flexible payment options available, either online via the Wild Apricot portal. By credit card at the end of the meal, our treasurer will have a scanner or a personal check at the annual meeting. So I hope that I'll see everyone who will be in San Diego 7 p.m. on Tuesday for the kickoff dinner. And we can advance the slide, please. On Wednesday, our friends from Mandarin Matrix and Macmillan will host us for a reception. This will be at the Temecula Salons 1 through 4 of the San Diego Marriott Marquis and Marina, which is where we will have our meeting Tuesday afternoon. This is from 5 o'clock to 7 p.m. There will be an open bar and finger foods. Members are invited to make their individual dinner plans after the reception for something more substantial. We can advance. And then on Thursday, we'll finish it out with the President's Reception, sponsored by Stevens Learning. That will be from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock on the 30th floor of the San Diego Hilton Bayfront in the Elevation Room. So I hope that you will note all of these on your calendars and that we'll see you there. And we can advance to the next slide. I was tempted to fill this slide in with next week's weather forecast in San Diego, but I think it's more apropos to once again acknowledge the real commitment that so many companies and organizations have shown Necessful this year by stepping up as sponsors. Without these sponsors, we simply would not be in a position to offer the same level of quality and detail that we enjoy at our annual meetings. And furthermore, I think the large number of sponsors that you see on the screen here is testament to how valuable they see our organization. So their participation is a strong reminder of the value of the work that each and every Necessful member does across the country. I hope you'll join me and the rest of the board next week at what promise to be really enjoyable receptions and meals. This concludes the Vice Presidential Report, so we can send it down the coast to South Carolina.
All right, thank you, Jay, and outstanding work. I need to give a shout out to Jay because he came into this with no prior experience working with our many different sponsors, and he jumped in feet first and has managed to pull off the, I think, the highest dollar value in sponsorship that we have ever secured to date. So, Jay, great job. Keep up the good work. All right, and then moving on to the report of our Linguafolio, our very able Linguafolio Committee Chair, Ruta Kule.
And I have attempted to unmute Ruta. She is with us via phone, and the audio pin has been sent to her, so she will need to enter that so that she has access to audio.
Muted. Unmuted.
Just so you're aware, the audio pin for anyone who is in the situation Ruta is in and coming to us via phone is 53. So if you type that into your phone, you should be able to unmute yourself and share your report.
Great.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. We can go to our first slide. At this time last year, we were really talking about updating the look of the Linguafolio site with updated formatting, especially. And this year, we are reporting a new set of can-dos. On the screen here, you have a list of all of the members that have participated in a labor of love that started last spring. I remember sending out a request to everyone around February, March, asking if anyone was interested in working on this. My own personal motivation was that our state was, I knew that ASL standards revision was coming up, and I'd spoken to a number of colleagues in Necessful, and it seemed to me that it would be better if we worked collaboratively rather than independently. And since a number of states have embraced the concept of the can-dos, you have on the screen the people that responded to the call. So we have in the first column the states that are represented, in the second column the successful members, whether they were in SCAs or LEAs. I believe we are all in SCAs with the exception of Jackie. And then each of the successful members recommended or recruited some ASL teachers. We had two that are deaf that are actually brothers. One was a very active member of the committee and the other has agreed to be a reviewer. And from Ohio, we had several teachers, one at a community college and the others in high school, that were very helpful in helping us, especially for the sample learning targets. So if we go to the next slide, we followed the framework of the Successful Can-Do language statements that went from novice, that go from novice to distinguished, and our draft for ASL Can-Dos does as well. We had lots of discussion about how we would break them down into modes, and since ASL is a visual language, and we decided that simplicity was the best way to go. So we have 3 modes: the interpretive, 1 way; interpersonal, 2 way; and then presentational. And we actually developed the benchmarks and the can-do indicators and the sample learning targets all the way through distinguished. However, for the intercultural competencies, we stopped at advanced, since that is where most of our state standards would conclude. Marty has expressed great interest in this, and she will be our intermediary with the American Association, ASLTA, the ASL Teachers Association, as well as contacts at Gallaudet. All of the work is posted on our Weebly, and I did a next slide, please, that will show you what it looks like. Anne Marie has mentioned it. So if you go to the Weebly and look at on the tab for the can-do statements, you will see, go to the next slide, please, that we have two different parts. We have all of the conference call minutes and drafts, which will probably disappear in the next few weeks. And then every week, as we would meet on the conference call, we would post the draft here. I've just created this morning a Google site where all of the documents, the cleaned up documents with no strike-throughs, are on a Google site. And I invite anybody in Successful, I'll send everyone the link, if you would like to review them or make any comments, to do so with track changes before December 4th, because at that time we will clean up the documents and take all your comments and suggestions, and then Marty will proceed and with the external review of the other 2 organizations that I mentioned. So we've got a lot done in a short period of time. It was almost every week except for the summer. So where there's a will, there's a way, and I'm very pleased to report that this will be, I think, a nice addition to the Successful Actual Can-Do statements, and possibly to LinguaFolio Online if that is of any interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruta, for both your report and for your stewardship of the work over the past year. I told Ruta in a personal email earlier today that I'm so very pleased with the level of professionalism that she exhibited in bringing together this group of educators from all over the country and making this process so enjoyable for all who participated. And although the statements at this point are still in need of a little bit of review and editing, they are looking great, and we are so pleased that LinguaFolio continues to prosper under your continued leadership. So thank you. Great. I'd like to move us forward in our agenda, and I would like to call to the floor Dessa Dawson from the Oklahoma State Department of Education. Dessa is our past president, and she's also served in the capacity as 2 chairs this year. She's chaired both the State Supervisor of the Year chair committee, as well as served as chair of the nominating committee. So Dessa, if you would please.
Thank you, Ryan. And good afternoon. I have, as he has said, two things to share. One of the things I cannot share at the moment is who our State Supervisor of the Year is. We will get that information at our meeting. But I do want to take the time to say thank you to the committee members, Ruta Coué from South Carolina and Sherry Quinlan, who is now retired but has graciously said, yes, I will serve. So we have reviewed the materials and have selected someone, but you'll have to wait. If I could go to my next slide, please. I also have been serving as the nominating committee chair, and I was so excited when most of our officers who are in office right now agreed to do the same thing for another 2 years. And that is exciting because it will give us some stability that we continue to hope that it will make us even a better organization. So those members are listed, and you have been told who they are already by Ryan. We're going to add to that list, though, as President-elect Ophelia Wade. I hope all of you have voted, but if not, you still have some time to do so. And again, I want to thank my committee members. We had 2 regular members, 1 retired member, and 1 associate member, and you see them listed there on the slide. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your work in reviewing and getting all of the officers filled. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much, Dessa. All right, moving forward in our program, I would like to bring to the floor my colleague from here at the Ohio Department of Education, Kathy Shelton. Kathy is our technology coordinator, and she also served this year and continues to serve in the ongoing process of refreshing the Necessful website. So, Kathy, without further ado.
Thanks, Ryan. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, if you can go to the next slide, Ryan, for me. Okay, I just want to do some quick updates for the new Necessful website. I neglected to put the names of the committee members, so I want to give a shout out to all of them really quickly. Along with me on the committee is Don Reutershawn, Julie Sykes, Michaela Klaus-Nix, Julio Rodriguez, Adriana Brandt, and Sherry Quinlan, who were with me through thick and thin, and also the Necessful board members gave a lot of input. The homepage for the new website, after many painstaking meetings, has finally been finalized, as have the interior pages. We think you'll be happy with the design. It's very modern, it's very dynamic, clean, it's very easy to use, which were the requests of the members, that it just be simple and easy to use was really basically what we got down to. So it's different than a lot of things out there, and I think it will make, we think it will make Necessful stand out when people land on our page. I'm not going to reveal anything here. We'll do the big reveal in San Diego. At this moment, it's unfortunately, we were hoping it would be a final version ready for the meeting, but it's not. But we do at least have some parts of the website in test version and the beta version ready to go. So I will be doing those Thursday in San Diego. So I'll show as much as we have at that point. And the final thing is I still need photos of members. We are going to have on our membership page, everyone's going to have a profile, and we would like your photo. Ryan gave me permission today to substitute any photo I want if someone doesn't give me one, so be forewarned. That's on behalf of the Necessful president. So, but in all seriousness, if you can send me your photo, a JPEG, at least 300 wide, that would be perfect. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. And again, a word of thanks to Kathy. Putting together a website that all of us in Necessful can be proud of and be happy with has turned out to be quite the task. We'll just leave it at that. And I want to let Kathy know that I'm very pleased with how well she's worked with the various constituents, first in collecting feedback from the entire membership and then working across her committee and with the members of the Nacessville board to come up with a design that I am absolutely excited to share with everyone on Thursday. Can't believe you're making this wait until Thursday, Kathy, but it's worth the wait and the suspense. So thank you all for your contributions to that, and we can all look forward to the big reveal next Thursday. All right, moving forward in our program, and we are just about on schedule here. I'd like to go to Shuhan Wang, our dear friend, former state supervisor from Delaware, and now president of ELE Consulting International. And of course, Shuhan was leading up the Chinese State of the Field project, in which many of us participated through the contribution of some of our state data. And Shuhan is here just to give us a very brief update on that project and where it stands today. So thank you, Shuhan, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good afternoon. On behalf of our friends, Bob Davis and Selena Cantor from the College Board and myself, I'm making this presentation. Specifically, I'd like to focus on the report of the College Board Nacessville Survey of Chinese Language Education in the United States conducted during the 2014-2015 school year. In addition to expressing our gratitude to all Nacessville members who provided data, I'd like to thank Ryan Wirtz, Anne-Marie Gunter, and the Executive Board for their support. In particular, my appreciation also goes to Don Rutashen, who was my partner in crime. We had a lot of fun collaborating, collecting, analyzing data, writing report, and everything else. You know, the task was demanding and challenging at times, but we really had fun, and so I really appreciate that. So next slide, please. All right, I guess many of you are curious to know exactly how many Chinese language programs do we have in the nation. And based on the data from 2005 report that Vivian Stewart and myself co-authored, there were less than 200 programs nationwide reported by CLAS, that's Chinese Language Teachers Association of Secondary and Elementary Schools, or the now discontinued Center for Chinese High School Programs at Princeton University. And based on the data that we gathered from the 2012-13 data submitted by 20 states, there were almost 1,800 programs throughout the U.S. And as you can see, and that's no surprise to everybody, elementary school did show the largest gain of more than 500% growth. High school followed that with 217% growth. Middle school trailed behind, but still showed a 46% growth. So this is really wonderful. Next slide, please. And I'll show you the national data later in the next slide, but this one in particular is that we took the 9 states that gave us data for the previous year that we asked, as well as the 2012 and 2013 data. And in this way, we can compare apple with apples instead of apples with oranges, you know. With the exception of Wyoming that showed a decrease, and Oklahoma that showed a very small increase in the number of students taking Chinese. Ohio, Indiana, and also West Virginia were like dark horses. They really have shown, great growth. And of course, Utah's stories have been cited everywhere. California and also North Carolina show remarkable growth as well. So this is something that's kind of encouraging. But of course, we cannot say that we can generalize the trend from only 9 states, but it is safe to say that most states do show an increase in their Chinese language education. Next slide, please. So we try, but the best we could come up with is an educated guess of maybe 300,000 students are taking Chinese in 2014. And this is taking from the NSSFL data of 14 states reporting data in 2012 to 2013, plus Massachusetts reported data from 2013 to 2014. So there were about 80,000 students. And I forgot to put in the online students, there were about 3,500 students taking Chinese online from 9 states. And then StarTalk also gave us their data, and these are summer programs, therefore it's not in double counted, for our NSSFL data. And then the Heritage Language School also reported 150,000 students. So total, we have hard data of 240,000 students reported. And then because we didn't collect data from private school and international school and other online programs outside of NSSFL, so we estimate that there are definitely, or at least 300,000 students taking Chinese in 2012 to 2014. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean then? From the survey, it's very clear to see that Chinese is on the rise, but teacher supply remains the biggest obstacle meeting the demands of Chinese language programs, and also the variety of Chinese language programs have changed. Therefore, the demands have been very different from sector to sector. And the other thing that's very clear is that states are the drivers. And states that really tap into partnerships and collaboration really made a difference. So that's something for all of us to consider. How do we tap into all the different stakeholders in our states to collaborate and to promote the study of languages? Another thing is that many states reported that they do have some system in place for credit by proficiency or seal of biliteracy. So that is really a great space for us to really tap into and also think about language learning in non-traditional spaces and with innovative tools. And with all that, we are able to mobilize the whole language education to a different space. It's really exciting. And another thing, particularly for Chinese, is that, we do need to build and expand a robust language learning system, invest in teachers and curriculum instruction, material, resources, and assessment. Another thing is to collaborate with stakeholders to create multiple learning paths that connects K-12 to higher education, to careers, and also to teacher preparation programs. That's very important. And another thing is that I guess we all know that, but after this, survey, we really feel the need to develop a national guidelines following the example of seal biliteracy. If key language organizations can come together, develop a national guidelines for systemic data collection and analysis, and share that with all states, that's going to be very helpful and important, because no other disciplines are going to do that for ourselves, for us, and if we don't take it up upon ourselves, we will never have meaningful data in our country. And finally is we really need to pay attention to how do we create opportunities to learn a second language and ensure access to resources for all students. So that's my short report, and if you have any questions or concerns, we can continue our conversation in San Diego. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shuhan, for that report. We've all been wondering what happened to all of those data that we worked so hard to turn in, and we are so very grateful to you and to your partner in crime, Don, for all of the work that you did to put all of that information together. And I know College Board is working now to figure out how best to release that report and those data in the near future. So we look forward to continuing to work with College Board to get that information out widely to the field. So wonderful. And also very important, I'd like to mention, because you all may be aware that recently the administration of President Obama announced a new initiative, a new Chinese language learning initiative. They started off with the original 100,000 Strong program, which was designed to get 100,000 post-secondary American students studying in Chinese universities. But more recently, President Obama announced the 1 Million Strong initiative, and that is designed to get 1 million new Chinese K-12 students learning Chinese in American schools. And I would just mention, I guess I didn't include this in my report, but I did recently reach out to Steve Knapp, who is the president at George Washington University. He's been tapped to lead that initiative, to chair that initiative, and I did reach out to him recently by phone to offer the services of Necessful as a strategic partner in that initiative. I think we all realize that if that's going to happen, we are going to have to play a pivotal role at the state level to help carry that work forward. So I'm currently waiting for a response from him, and I will share that information as it becomes available. So, moving us right along, I'd like to call to the floor Phyllis Farr from the Kansas Department of Education. You may all be aware that Phyllis was chairing the ad hoc committee to work with the U.S. Department of Education on the revision of world language course codes. So, Phyllis, if you would give us the latest and greatest relating to that work, we would be very grateful.
Thank you, Ryan. The Ad hoc Course Code Committee submitted almost exactly 1 year ago recommendations for the 30-some language codes that were in the old SCED or SCED coding system. Next slide, please. We submitted those recommendations. Those included specific course codes, 16 different course codes in about 30 languages, all of them at the secondary level following the same pattern for each level of language, incorporating references to the standards and to ACTFL proficiency level targets. Basically trying to do some improvements to the elementary immersion and or FLES program codes. Those were generic, not language specific. We were approached in June following our submission in November. We were approached in June to set up a WebEx to answer questions when their committee, it's called the SCED Working Group, was meeting, going to have a summer meeting, and they wanted to clarify some of the intentions of our descriptions and run some ideas past us. We did get their questions answered and some important clarifications made. And then about a month ago, when I contacted them for an update as to how the work was going, they responded saying that they needed one more look. They wanted to change all of the elementary codes to be language specific as well. So making them mirror the secondary codes in that there's a clear code for each language. So where we are now is that they want us to look at the two descriptions. Next slide, please. The two descriptions that differentiate between FLES, or Spanish for Young Learners, and some type of immersion program. So we're taking a look at those descriptions one more time, trying to get it right so that people will see two things. They'll see how the language codes differentiate between program types, or how the descriptions differentiate between program types, and that they are, both types of programs can be standards-based, both content standards and world language standards based. So the committee has just a little bit more tweaking to do. We've taken a stab at these two descriptions several times, and we'll probably be putting our heads together one more time at the meetings next week and making sure that we get it right, because this is sort of our chance to get it right. So next slide. Next slide, please. All right, so the leader of the working group, Ms. Jadam Bairu, says that most of our ad hoc committee's recommendations will be enacted in the new course codes. The next version of those codes will be published in September of 2016, and we're just excited to see how much mini is. We'll get these last two descriptions turned in to provide the pattern for the elementary course codes, and a big thanks to the committee members. You see the 7 people plus myself, 6 people plus myself, who jumped in every time we were asked for more input, and I really appreciate everybody's willingness to help out with this. I believe that when I came on board in my job 8 years ago, the course codes was one of the things that came to my attention first. Seeing better course codes and better descriptions would help us all get national data put together. It'll be amazing if we can, 8 years later, actually get this done. So looking forward to seeing new world language SCED codes in 2016, and maybe they'll be so good that more of our states will want to use them.
And Phyllis has a question from the audience. Bill Rivers would like to know, is Spanish an example, or is it the sole language in the request from SCED?
No, Spanish is now, that was just an example of how each specific, there will be probably 16 languages described at the elementary level, just like there are at the secondary level. So there would be, in each language, there would be a Spanish for young learners and a Spanish immersion. There would be a German for young learners and a German immersion. So the course for young learners is what a lot of us know as a FLES model, or us old-timers know as a FLES model, and then the various types of immersion programs would fall under the other category and fill in the language and grade level. But the two that were on the screen, the 2 Spanish, were providing a model for all of the other languages.
And another question, Phyllis, from Helga Fasciano. Will there be a general or other code available for the other languages not represented?
Yes, both at elementary and secondary level. There's, well, there are like 14 specific languages, and then there are categories like Romance languages, Germanic languages, Asiatic languages, and then in addition to those, there is other.
Are there any other questions for Phyllis? All right, if not, Phyllis, I'd like to commend you and your committee members for staying the course. Of course, working with the federal government is never an easy or quick process, and we're all very grateful to your continuing leadership around this very, very important initiative. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on in our program, it's now time for the report of our very able and capable JNCL delegate. So I'd like to turn it over to Helga Fasciano from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Helga?
Thank you so much, Ryan, and I'm just double checking that everyone can hear me okay. Ryan?
Yes, we can hear you just fine, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. And if you would please go ahead and go to the next slide. And while that is happening, I just want to say thank you once again for the trust that this group has put upon me, because this is truly an honor to represent a group like NACESFL in this capacity. I know that we have a lot of new members, so I want to make sure that you knew what the JNCL NCLES does stand for, and it is the Joint National Committee for Languages and the National Council for Languages and International Studies. There is the link to their website. Unfortunately, their website was hacked into at the beginning of 2015 or even towards the end of 2014, and they are slowly rebuilding, and I believe Bill Rivers, Executive Director, may address how they're going to move forward. But I would urge that you actually go to this website. There is pertinent information there that is about what's happening now. Also, for you to actually take a look at who the members are, because you may be surprised who else besides NACESFL may be a member from your state. But JNCL NCLES does represent the language profession to the United States as a whole. As professional organizations in the teaching, translation, interpreting, testing, research, and many other fields, JNCL NCLES does raise public awareness of language as an enterprise vital to national well-being. The language enterprise employs about 500,000 Americans who work to foster mutual understanding and who do deserve this continued public support. At the October board meeting, it was shared that new members included the Alabama World Language Association, Louisiana Foreign Language Teachers Association, and the CODAFIL there, the New Mexico Organization of Language Educators, and that the Executive Director has been able to get commitments to join from the South Carolina, West Virginia, and the Maryland Foreign Language Associations. And if we go ahead and go to the next slide, one of the main reasons it's really important to know who your folks are is so that you can become connected to them. In North Carolina, we have been very fortunate that our Foreign Language Association of North Carolina has been a longtime member, and we have long shared information with that delegate about the state of foreign languages or world languages in the state of North Carolina that could then be shared with those representatives. So this is your opportunity to also go to Washington, so to speak, but ensure that your state information is getting to your legislators. So do get to know them. The Language Advocacy Day and Delegate Assembly is being held earlier this year or this coming year. Normally this event is held in May. And what happens is that I will be joining other colleagues representing you, NACESFL, to advocate for language on Capitol Hill, at the Department of Education, and the White House. And as I had said, it has been moved up to February, and the timing has changed from early May in order to better align advocacy efforts with the congressional calendar. And this request actually did help that come from those congressional offices, because by the time we were getting there in May, things were often already done, so to speak, and so they were looking at things for the following year. So as I said, language advocates from all over the U.S. through this Delegate Assembly and Language Advocacy Day will be in Washington to visit their members of Congress and demonstrate the impact of their own work in language and discuss the overall importance of world languages to the nation's well-being. So even though this is a very pivotal event that JNCL Nicholas does organize for us, if we go to the next slide, please. Did want to mention some of the other things that this group does provide you as an Assessful member. I don't think there's a single person here who has not appreciated the wonderful news briefs that the JNCL staff and the executive director will tell you just how lean that staff is. At least I hope he will share that information, because it's incredible what they are able to do. And then also action alerts. And if you were paying attention, I sent out one of those action alerts yesterday. So one thing about those action alerts is that even though you as an individual may not be able to write for that action alert, but although you really could as a private citizen and do it from your private email, please share this with your foreign language associations or other language associations, because those groups can alert their members. And the more that our congressmen will hear from us, then the more they realize that these issues are critical. I also want you to know that JNCL does a great voice of representing you in world language policy and legislative matters on the Hill. So they do secure report language and floor statements, and they have really ramped up really looking at the importance of world languages in K-12 education. So again, I would personally like to express thanks to Dr. Bill Rivers for seeing that through and making sure that happens. They have been working really tirelessly behind the scenes and looking at securing inclusion of world language programming in the ESEA draft. The World Language Advancement Act, which came out this past summer's draft legislation, is in a manner a revamped and better version of the former FLAP grant. And probably one of the most exciting things to happen is to secure studies such as the one that is occurring currently with the AAAS Commission on Language Learning. And I know that Dr. Rivers does plan to share some updates on that. And one exciting thing is that one of our members, to NACESFL, Marty Abbott, is actually serving on that commission, and she may also have some things to share with that. So take a few moments, find out who your members are, share information with them. Please help out with these action alerts. And if you are happy with that JNCL news brief, how about sending Maria a note? I am sure she would appreciate hearing from you. And so with that, I conclude my report as your JNCL delegate.
Olga, thank you so much for representing us so aptly, and we are so pleased that you will be representing us on the executive board here in the coming years. So just keep up the great work.
Thank you.
All right, this concludes the portion of our program in which all of our various committee chairs are reporting out. I hope you found their reports to be both useful and interesting in terms of learning what all our organization is involved in these days. These are ongoing initiatives, and I'm so very grateful to be working with all of these committee chairs who are such apt leaders and who have been moving their work forward in such great ways. So thank you all for your reports and for your service to the organization. At this point, I would like to introduce to all of you the Director of Research at the American Councils for International Education. Of course, many of you will remember that earlier this year we were asked to do our best in terms of providing state-level enrollment figures for the newest national enrollment survey that is being conducted. For the first time, the American Councils was asked to shepherd this work. We did kind of join the game a bit late in the process, but I'd like to thank all of the members who worked diligently with their archaic dinosaur-like data systems to try and get those numbers to turn in. Some of us had it a little easier than others in terms of the ease with which we can access that type of information. For many of us, there's a very lengthy process requesting permission to gather those types of information and public request processes that have to be undertaken. So I want to begin by asking Nadra to or thanking her for her patience with us, as many of us had to overcome some bureaucratic handicaps to provide that information. So, Nadra, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here, Ryan.
Great. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. You are coming to us from Washington, D.C.?
Yes.
And wonderful. So, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, I'm all set up, and
wonderful.
I want to start off by thanking you, Ryan, and the board for this opportunity to share and update you all on what we're doing with the National Enrollment Survey. And thank all of those of you who have already sent in data. I appreciate all the time and effort, and everybody on this team really appreciates all the time and effort it takes to pull these data together. We know that it's often not easy and challenging, as Ryan just mentioned, so we appreciate that all the more. For those of you who may not be familiar with American Councils is an international nonprofit that has been in operation for over 40 years with core competency in language learning, and it works a lot on international education programs, such as academic exchanges, overseas language immersion, and educational development programs extensively, both in the U.S. and around the world. We work in about over 80 countries and 40 languages at present. So the genesis of the National Enrollment Survey that we're currently working on, and that some of you have already participated in, started in 2009 when we were working with the Language Flagship Program, which is operated out of the National Security Education Program out of DoD, to learn a little bit more about what's happening with the less commonly taught languages across the U.S., to help the Language Flagship Program develop the linkages between higher ed, where most of their programming is occurring, with the K-12 programs, pipeline, and initiatives. So we did that in 2009, and as we get more and more involved in this field, we, with the support of NCEP and the flagship program, started the National Enrollment Survey for this current year. If we could go to the next slide, please, Ryan. With the support of NCEP, as I mentioned, and in partnership with both ACTFL, CAL, MLA, and Assessful, which we were very glad to be able to have you all join this effort, developed a survey to look at the state of K-12 and higher education. This is the MLA contribution, to learn a little bit more about what is happening with foreign language education across the board in all states. And the idea is to develop and be able to document the state of foreign language education and share this report with you and with others, different stakeholders, and try to be yet one more input in the policy-making process to support K through 16 educational capacity in foreign languages across the U.S. In this effort, CAL has been working on the K-12 component. American Councils for International Education is focusing on the high school census components, 9 to 12, grades 9 to 12. ACTFL and Assessful have been working at the state level to collect data at the state level as much as possible. We focus on the high school component because that's the closest to NCEP and American Council's programs and initiatives. But we also understand the need to link that with what's happening through the K-8 because it's all one big stream. And the more we learn about that, the better off I think, and the more richer the data would be for our analysis and for use by different stakeholders and constituencies, and to be able to really inform the debate a little bit more about language education in the U.S. Next slide, please. The enrollment survey has expanded. We've expanded the range to learn more about also interactions of different language education programs within a particular district or state or school, to include this long list of 24 languages that you all see on the screen before you. We've also had many long discussions as a team in partnership with our ACTFL and CAL and others, and of course NCEP and the Language Flagship Program, trying to narrow down the data items that we would focus on. To start off with, the list was very, very considerably longer than this. We wanted to know everything that we could possibly think about in terms of language education, but we realized that given the scope of the project, particularly the high school census, where we're reaching out to all public and private high schools across the U.S. and all 50 states to try to learn a little bit more about what they're doing, what their course offerings are, what their enrollment is, what type of programs do they offer, what levels, learn a little bit more about their teachers. We decided to focus on data items that are listed before you here on the screen. Learning more about the number of schools offered, which languages are being offered, enrollment at each grade level, again, numbers of full-time and part-time teachers, availability of AP classes or IB courses, and again, assessment instruments. Can we go to the next slide, please, Ryan? So far at the state level, these are the lists of all the states, and it shows where we have data and where we still are attempting to collect data if possible. I won't go into the description of all of it, but it's there before you all to peruse. But again, I'd like to thank those states that have sent in the data. We're still in data collection phase, so I cannot really speak to results and conclusions yet. But from what we've seen, these are very interesting data, very informative, and it's been very exciting to work on it so far. And we're looking forward to completing data collection. If we can go to the next slide, please, Ryan. We're looking forward to completing data collection by the end of November. We've extended our data collection deadline several times. We're still in field with the high schools. It's currently a very productive effort, so we decided to extend that data collection period as well. For states, we've also extended this data collection period. The richer the data, the richer the analysis and conclusions that we can reach. So we're hoping to wrap up data collection by the end of November to have enough time between now and March, when we release our results, to be able to run our analyses, develop our models, come up with the report, and be able to share this with the language community, language learning and teaching community at large, in March. So we hope that those of you who can still contribute data to do so. We are continuing to focus on the high school data collection. It's a census. We're reaching out to thousands of high schools across the country, and that's a monumental labor-intensive effort trying to call the different schools to get these more fine-grained data at the school level. So we're excited about that, and we're looking forward to be able to maybe come back to you at the end of this process and share our results with you all. Thank you.
And just a real quick question from Dessa Dawson in Oklahoma. What about Native American languages in this work?
We have not been able to, we wished we could have been able to include a specific category for Native American languages. We have not been able to do so. Our resources were not able to extend that far. However, we, at the school level, actually at all levels, school and state levels, we've encouraged people to report on the other language category, and there we've been able to capture quite a bit on Native American languages. Maybe not specific breakdown in some cases. Some states and some schools have reported on specific languages. Some of them have reported on the general category of Native American languages. So we were able to capture some of these data, even though they were not included on the list of 24.
And real quickly, for those states that still could submit data, would you please share that information with Ryan so that he could distribute it to the membership?
All right, are there any more questions for Nadra? Well, Nadra, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. As major consumers of the information that you are currently calling, we are thankful for your work, and we're grateful to have been included in the project. And if there are still states that might be able to contribute data, we will do our best to support them in their attempt to get that information to you. So thank you so much, and know that you do have a strategic partner here in the Necessful. All right, to keep us moving forward in our agenda today, I would like to turn the floor over to the Executive Director of JNCL Nicholas, Dr. Bill Rivers. Bill, are you with us? Hello, Bill? We are not hearing you if you are attempting to speak.
Bill is unmuted from this end of the conference organizer end of the webinar. He may need to unmute himself on his own control panel. It appears he's muted himself to cut down on background noise. We might be experiencing technical difficulties. While we try to work those out, why don't we jump ahead to the ACTFL report, and we will come back to the JNCL report.
All right. Do we know that our ACTFL presenters are all present?
Yes, and I'm unmuting them right now.
All right. Let me advance the slides then, and we will move past here. And for some reason, Marty, your picture has disappeared.
Ryan, that's totally okay.
Sorry about that. It's there. I'm just not quite sure why it's not showing. So I guess this is your ghost image that you're sharing with us here. Well, I'd like to welcome all of you from ACTFL. Today we have with us Marty Abbott, the Executive Director of ACTFL. We've got Paul Sandrock, Director of Education, and then of course we have with us the current President of ACTFL, our own beloved Jackie Bott Van Houten. So I will turn it over to the ACTFL gang, as it is, or as it were.
Great, thanks Ryan. We're really pleased to be with you today, and we're looking forward to seeing many of you in San Diego very soon. So I won't spend a lot of time because as you've seen from the Assembly of Delegates agenda, we are going to be covering a lot of ground. But I did want to touch on how vital we feel the partnership is with NACESFL between our two organizations. We are a proud sponsor, as you know, of the NACESFL meeting each year, providing meeting space and AV packages and booth packages and gratis registrations, and we're very happy to be doing that. And our partnership is strong, as evidenced by some of the very important projects that we've worked on together and will work on together, including the guidelines for the Seal of Biliteracy, hopefully the ASL can-do statements, the other can-do statements. Jackie's going to be talking about some initiatives, and Paul as well. But I just wanted to underscore how important we feel this partnership is. And I did want to let you know that, as Ruta mentioned, I met this morning with Arlene Gunderson, the president of the American Sign Language Teachers Association, and they are very interested in participating in the ASL can-do statements. She will be at the ACTFL Assembly of Delegates, and she's interested in starting an ASL special interest group. And I told her that NACESFL members and NADSFL members would be very interested in being a part of that group because of the very, very high enrollments in ASL throughout the country. And so we look forward to continuing to collaborate in that area with you. And another very exciting announcement that we will be making at the convention is that finally, after 12 years, the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards will be opening up certifications to teachers beyond just French and Spanish teachers in the 2017-18 school year, and they're going to be requiring the ACTFL OPI and writing proficiency test to put aside that language-specific requirement that was bogging them down and keeping them from moving forward in certifications in other areas. So we're very excited about a lot of the progress, and I know that when Bill gets on, he will be talking about the AAAS Commission, but I just want to underscore that certainly with my participation on the Commission, I will, of course, keep NACESFL very deeply involved in the goings-on. Bill is probably going to mention that our first meeting is December 15th. So once we have that first meeting, I will know more about the process and how it's going to work. But right now, there are 5 white papers. I'm not going to go into them because I know Bill will when he gets on here. But we're just on our way to San Diego and look forward to celebrating with all of you there. I'll turn it over to Jackie's next, I think.
And Marty, you'll notice that you have magically appeared on the screen.
It's magic, Ryan. It's magic.
You can advance 2 slides, Ryan. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you as ACTFL president, but as a NACESFLite, too, of the past and a current NADSFLite, I guess. We're going to talk for just a minute about the foldout that was in the Language Educator, just to show you what we're sharing with others and talking about how this plays into looking at proficiency levels. We want to collaborate with you all as we begin to do a couple of things. One is to set proficiency targets. We know that many states and districts have set their own proficiency targets, but it would be tremendously helpful nationally if ACTFL could come out with an agreed upon set of proficiency targets that shows what students are able to do at the end of elementary, at the end of middle, at the end of high, at certain levels of university, whatever, because it plays into this proficiency level for the workplace. It plays into the biliteracy seal. So, of course, we're going to be needing your help on this. You'll be vital to it. And the other aspect of the can-do statements, which also play into this, that we have created and have had actually the first virtual meeting with a new task force on interculturality can-dos. The NACESFL interculturality can-dos that have been used by a couple of states and are up for use by NACESFL on the website are being looked at through this task force in the same way that ACTFL sponsored the NACESFL ACTFL language can-do setting. So we're going to look at the interculturality now and see if we can finalize that, expand it so that it reaches elementary, middle, and high, and then on up beyond to college and life. So we have examples for immersion in all types of settings. So again, we have NACESFL people on that committee. We have only met once virtually, but we'll be meeting face-to-face and then have a long series of meetings virtually again to finalize these can-dos, and I'm sure we'll be calling on you again to review them. I think that is it for this, and Paul is up next.
Hi there. And this is another great example of the collaboration with NACESFL. I want to thank Michelle Aoki and Ursula Lentz, who were your great NACESFL representatives on the collaborative effort to create guidelines for the Seal of Biliteracy to try to bring some national consistency across the way that this is being implemented state by state. And I know you've seen the guidelines, and it was a great example of collaboration. NACESFL and TESOL International and NABE plus ACTFL. This is a document that has really been extremely helpful as more and more states look at what they could do to implement a Seal of Biliteracy. This is a constantly changing slide that I have used, and it is one that we try to keep updated as best as possible. So NACESFL, please continue to help us keep this updated as to what has actually been approved and those that are under consideration in some form. This is the best data we have at this point. And I would just ask, are there issues that you are hearing in your states related to the Seal of Biliteracy that connect with the whole discussion Jackie just framed around proficiency levels and targets? It may even tie into some of the teacher effectiveness discussions in your states. It would help us as we look at what are the resources that perhaps we could develop that would support the ongoing discussion and enactment of the Seal of Biliteracy. So I'll just pause and see if there are questions or issues, really issues that you are hearing in your states, and help us engage in this conversation right now.
Paul, Lisa Harris in Virginia noted that Virginia can be added to the intermediate mid requirement. Thank you. Fantastic.
And Paul, I'm just going to jump in with an Ohio anecdote. Of course, we're attempting to move our Seal of Biliteracy initiative forward here in Ohio, but what we're running into is essentially a problem of equity. Our State Board of Education is not willing to consider a Seal of Biliteracy for English language learners and world language learners if similar considerations aren't given to all of the other content areas as well. So that is the current roadblock in the state of Ohio. It's just one example of an initiative that started off with a fairly solid footing and has been kind of waylaid by other subject area interests.
That's a really interesting idea there. Just trying to wrap my head around what might be a similar competency that certainly people can demonstrate in other ways in other disciplines.
We've got competition from especially the STEM realm as one particularly specialized area, but our State Board of Education members are quite fixated on ensuring that all content areas have some form of recognition. So we're wading through that mud as we speak.
And Paul, this is Anne-Marie, and I am speaking also for a conversation Helga and I are having here in the background. We would like to see North Carolina move to the state-approved SEAL part of this list. We do have the Global Languages Endorsement now that has been approved by our State Board of Education, and that is the term that we use for our seal of biliteracy in North Carolina.
Excellent. And has a proficiency level been set?
Yes, intermediate low is the minimum proficiency level required to earn the Global Languages Endorsement, but there's the possibility of earning, of course, much higher levels of proficiency.
Sort of the Minnesota idea, or what Utah was considering. Excellent.
Speaking of Minnesota, Ursula has noted that Minnesota now has advanced low requirements for platinum, intermediate high for gold seals, and intermediate low for world language proficiency certificates. And she says their seals carry college credit, and that an issue is assessments for the less commonly taught languages.
Excellent, excellent. Which leads to our next slide, actually, thinking about language credit. And just as a segue before Jackie jumps in, we are looking at piloting a process that I know we shared on the last NACESFL webinar and had great response from that to get districts that are interested in doing kind of what Minnesota just described. How do you align the credentialing of language learning, that demonstration, whether it is English or another language that someone has learned, and connect that into the college credit piece as well, so that there's a more seamless transition in that learning from K-12 into higher ed. So this becomes more and more a question, and Jackie, I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Right, and an additional facet to that in terms of language credit has been discussed maybe ad nauseum with NACESFL and others about the coding, computer coding. But it's not just coding as a language. There are other elements that might be brought up too. What about Braille for ASL? You know, how are we awarding credit for world language? What aspects do we need to consider? Are there other facets of language that would count for credit, and how do we frame the discussion on that? I know you get a lot of those questions in the state departments, so maybe you can help us figure out how to put out some recommendations for others to use in answering these questions. So part of it too is with the global competence. You know, where does language fit with global competence? We know, but we still have to work on that with states. So trying to help us figure out good ways to get that message across, not only to states, but to districts and to schools and individuals. Paul?
Great, we can go to the last slide then, and another wonderful example of collaboration has been NACESFL's key role as one of the organizing partners of the Leadership Initiative for Language Learning, LIL, and it has really played out exactly as was envisioned, that people would come together and look at their sphere of influence, but connect with the other spheres of influence and have a common message. So Lisa Harris, here's a shout out to you. Thanks so much for being one of those key organizing partners, master Twitterer, and other inspiration throughout the whole LIL process on behalf of NACESFL. And just as an update for NACESFL, what is going to be occurring now into 2016 is to continue to support the 30 emerging leaders that participated in the Summer Institute, That's the most direct process, with a follow-up gathering in July in Chicago that will bring those 30 emerging leaders together and still provide other ways of supporting the messaging, that common message at all of these levels around core practices. And so you will be seeing some resources coming out about core practices, again connecting with many of the emerging leaders who gathered in Columbus last summer, including Necessful's Jay Kettner, and the whole idea of creating teacher voices about the core practices. It's going to be called Lang Talks, and again, the leadership is coming completely from the Emerging Leader Group. So again, thank you so much for supporting the concept and helping us all get the initiative started and really thinking about growing that leadership pipeline. Thanks. And I think, unless there are other questions, we're running short on time, so we'll continue in San Diego.
I just wanted to make one short remark, and that is to have Necessful think about how you might help ACTFL broaden our organization internationally. You've been very involved in the past with China, with the Council of Europe, and with others, and we want to continue that on a national basis with ACTFL as well. So, and I think you'll see a lot of that at the convention.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Marty, Paul, and Jackie, for the update. And we will give some consideration to that last request from Jackie. So thank you all very much. Just as ACTFL appreciates and values its partnership with Necessful, I can say very much the same thing on behalf of Necessful. We do truly appreciate all of the support and collaboration that we are so fortunate to enjoy with ACTFL. We very much realize your role in sponsoring us in our annual meeting in conjunction with the ACTFL convention. We're very grateful for that support, and we are grateful to have such wonderful professional partners such as yourself. So thank you all. At this point, I'd like to try and go back and see if we're able to pick up Dr. Rivers.
Can you hear me?
Yes, so let me back up here very quickly. See if I can get to your slides here.
And I hope it's not too loud. I'm in a coffee shop. I had meetings in downtown D.C., and so I'm sort of sitting on free Wi-Fi waiting for this to happen. And first, I'd like to thank Necessful and Ryan Wirtz and all of my colleagues on this webinar, because you're often bombarded by sometimes fairly opaque requests for data or for information that has to do with sometimes specific issues that are being worked out on the Hill or in the White House or in the executive branch. And what you help us do is, for JNCL, is that you're part of our role as the trusted partner on all things related to language for the administration, for the Congress. I want to talk a little bit. Helga mentioned our website was hacked. It's fine now. We did spend a lot of time hardening it, and we'll be transitioning it to a new website design sometime in the next year with even better security and look and feel and all that. And as she mentioned as well, as Helga mentioned as well, our language advocacy days are now in late February, which has to do with the way the congressional calendar works now. It also gets it off of Mother's Day, which is not a trivial consideration for many of us. It's right on Capitol Hill. We're returning to Capitol Hill for the first time in 5 or 6 years. At the Hyatt on Capitol Hill, short walk from the Capitol and from all the office buildings up there. And the registration price is the same. I think the hotel is $10 more than it was last year. So, and many huge thanks to ACTFL and to Julia Richardson and Courtney Wu for assisting in that negotiation. We can go to the next slide if you'd be so kind. So what Ryan asked me to talk about were the state-level impacts on world languages and the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. I'm going to skip this slide. Let's go to the next one. I'll talk at more length about the AAAS study at the ACTFL Delegate Assembly, and I encourage everyone to be there. I think my talk is scheduled for the joint portion of the Delegate Assembly when NADSFL and NACESFL are going to be in the room. So FLAP, we all know and love FLAP, the Foreign Language Assistance Program. Grew out of recommendations in the 1979 report of the President's Commission, the Perkins report, Perkins Commission, often called the Simon Commission. Created in 1991 by the Foreign Language Assistance Act, which was really sponsored primarily by Leon Panetta in the House and Thad Cochran in the Senate, reauthorized in 2001 as a separate act incorporated into the National No Child Left Behind Act. What FLAP did, and I know everyone on this call knows it, it's worth reminding ourselves of the impact of the Foreign Language Assistance Program. In no small measure because of FLAP, we now know how to do dual language immersion. We know how to program immersion K through 12. We look at programs as diverse as the ones in Anchorage to Hattiesburg to Fairfax, and I know I'm missing some, and I don't mean to slight anyone by not mentioning your programs. We've really sorted out how to do language really well and created curricula and program models that are second to none, really are world leading, to the point where dual language immersion is now the preferred solution for English language learners at the Department of Education, at NAVE, at TESOL. Okay, so the impact of FLAP has been tremendous. However, in 2009, there was a General Accounting Office report that said FLAP is really small. It's $25 million. No program of that size can have an appreciable impact on a national scale, and it's poorly managed. That was used as an excuse by Secretary Duncan to take FLAP as well as 5 other subject-specific competitive grant programs and roll them into a proposal for state-level block grants, formula block grants, for the quote-unquote well-rounded curriculum, which would supplement the race to the top. About $490 million, of which our $28 million was the smallest, second smallest chunk which. That was rejected by the Congress, which rightly noted that there was no such program as well-rounded curriculum. The department did not have the authority to spend the $490 million. And thank you very much, we'll take that $490 million back. So it was essentially, to be really honest, it was fumbled away by a Department of Education that had different priorities, and it was using a GAO report against us. So this comes to where we are with Every Child Achieves Act. The Every Child Achieves Act has 2 different versions, one in the House, one in the Senate. They are right now more or less mutually incompatible for a wide range of reasons that have to do with, for example, Title III being eliminated in the House version but included in the Senate version. So this would be our funding for English language learners. At the moment, there is nothing for world languages in the bills. Okay, going to the next slide. And I'm going to come to what we're trying to do about that. We are focusing and have met even this week on the Hill on the informal conference between the House and Senate to reconcile these 2 bills. We are told that the Senate is in the lead. Of course, we're told this in senatorial offices, so not quite sure if that's really the case, but the Senate's in the lead because it's more likely that the Senate bill would be closer to what the President will sign. There are huge issues with the bill having to do with accountability, some of the punitive measures that are associated with accountability and how AFT and NEA react to those. So our little issue was sort of down at the tail end. But as Helga mentioned, we have a World Language Advancement Act that has been introduced in the House, introduced as an amendment in the Senate. We're hoping that next week it will be introduced as an act in the Senate that would update FLAP in a couple of ways. It's advancement, not assistance, and that's a semantic change in the title, but it's a very important one for the perception of this legislation. It covers world languages, not foreign languages, world languages. Again, that's more or less semantic, but it does include a specific reference that is more inclusive to things such as ASL, and I know that's potentially controversial in some states, and other states maybe not. Native languages, although there are other programs for that, but that broadens the aperture a little bit. There's still an emphasis on critical languages as determined by the Secretary, although I would remind folks that Spanish and French are on critical language lists, not on every agency's list, but on some of them. But it adds some new things. STEM curriculum, some specific incentives to develop STEM curriculum in world languages, and that's with an eye on what's going on in immersion, particularly as we look at immersions reaching into junior and senior high school, as we see immersions in higher grades. So we're going to have one of the great limiting factors for the growth of immersions will likely be curriculum. We know that's a challenge. And then pilot projects for distance learning. And this has come up in the context of a lot of our western states where distances are very great, where school districts may cover several thousand square miles, and where it's simply not feasible to have a centralized immersion because of the transportation issues. And it's also, frankly, got us some support from some of those western senators and representatives. Introduced in the House in June 2015 with bipartisan support, introduced in the Senate as an amendment to Every Child Achieve Act, and we're working right now as we speak on getting Republican sign-ons in the Senate. We have verbal assurances that this will be brought up in the conference from both House and Senate and from both sides of the aisle. So we're not giving up yet on seeing something happen in the reauthorization of No Child Left Behind. We also expect that for the formal conference we'll be doing the same, as this two very complex bills have to be turned into one coherent bill that both House and Senate can vote on. If it should happen that this bill goes forward if it becomes law signed by the President without the World Language Advancement Act, we will continue to push for a separate act. And regardless, we're going to focus on immersion in K-12 in the upcoming commission. This is, in some ways, the states and districts have really outstripped the federal government in this administration in the ways that we think about language programming and the ways that we're supporting world languages in K-12. But from the national point of view, we think it's vitally important that the Department of Education retain its capability to incentivize and retain its essentially its position as a bully pulpit. So that's our quote-unquote flat strategy. If we go on to the next slide. So AAASA, I'm talking about AAASA, I apologize. Founded in 1780 by John Adams and others, it is the oldest U.S. academy, the third oldest in the world. I was corrected at the French Embassy earlier this week. There was a French academy that dates the 17th century. 2013, Heart of the Matter, the Commission on the Humanities and Social Sciences, requested by Congress in 2012. So in 2014, ACTFL and JNCL worked very hard to secure a request from a bipartisan group of senators and representatives to assess the impact of language on the national interest and to make recommendations as strategic recommendations as to what might be done to improve the situation of language learning and the use of languages. The commission was established and announced in July 2015. They have 2 years of philanthropic and corporate funding, primarily from the Mellon and Kaufman Foundations, to spend a year writing a report and submitting it to Congress, and then another year of going out and proselytizing, evangelizing with state governments, chambers of commerce, school districts, and so on. And a number of JNCL, Nicholas, and ACTFL partners have worked very hard on this project for 2 years. There will be 5 white papers, an overview written by Dick Brecht at American Council's Research Center, Language and Economic Growth, which JNCL Nicholas is writing, Language and Cognitive and Educational Benefits, looking at the research on this, which is being written by Judy Kroll at Penn State, Language Preservation, Transmission, Heritage Languages, and Language Access Issues, which is being done by the Center for Applied Linguistics, and Language and National Securities, which is being led by Gail McGinn, whom some of you will remember was the first Department of Defense Senior Language Authority. And next slide. And that's it. I tried to get through very quickly. You have the slides. I'll be at ACTFL and happy to talk in depth and at a somewhat slower pace. But in the interest of time, I'd like to wrap up right there.
All right, thank you, Bill. We greatly appreciate that update. Obviously, there's a lot going on, and even more importantly, a lot at stake for world languages. And we all appreciate your leadership around these issues.
Ryan, I did fail to mention, it was in my notes, we are working on the H-1B issue as well, and the report I can give very briefly is we've ascertained that this was not a change in law or regulation, and that we have the right contact at the White House who will help us sort it out with who the contact at the Department of Homeland Security would be. This is going to take a little while to sort out, as I and to move forward. But we are working diligently on it.
And we so greatly appreciate that, and just let us know how we can continue to help with that particular effort. All right, so that concludes the formal part of our program. We are running just a bit behind here, but we do still want to give everyone the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have. If there are any lingering concerns that have been raised in your minds by what you've heard today, this would be the time to voice those. Anne-Marie, do we have anything in the question box?
I do not have anything currently in the question box that has not already been addressed or passed along to presenters. But if someone would like to ask a question or add something, you're welcome to in the question box, or simply raise your hand and I will unmute you.
Perhaps as people are mulling over what they've heard, because you have heard a great deal of information this afternoon, maybe I can skip forward and quickly do just my very quick wrap up. Just a couple highlights from the meeting. First of all, for the first time in many years, we are not in the same meeting space for our Tuesday afternoon workshop and our Wednesday and Thursday business meeting. So I do want to point out to people that we are in two different locations. We are in the San Diego Marriott Marquis on Tuesday afternoon for our professional development workshop, and then we will be moving Tuesday morning to the San Diego Convention Center for all of the rest of our functions there, with the exception of, I believe, our Wednesday evening reception. We are back in the Marriott Marquis. And then on Friday, our NADSFul, Nacessful Continental Breakfast will be back in the Marriott Marquis. So a little bit different that we're moving back and forth. I don't want anyone to get lost. I do want to say that you do have a homework assignment. Those of you who will be able to attend the Tuesday afternoon workshop, we have a new initiative that we'll be sharing with you at the workshop. We'll be working together to create a repository of high-quality resources for our members to kind of help limit some of the reinvention of the wheel that takes place in all of our different locales. So we are asking everyone to bring one example of a high-quality professional development resource that you have created and successfully implemented or presented. That could come in the form of a PowerPoint or a Prezi presentation, maybe a plan or an agenda for a workshop that you've given that was particularly effective, a brochure that you've developed, the recording of a webinar that could be used as professional development for others, or any other type of learning activity. We're wide open to many different ideas. We would simply ask you to bring that either on a jump drive, or most people tend to have their own devices. So if you have a device that you could show that on, a laptop or a tablet, that would be great. We are probably not going to have a huge internet availability, although we are trying to bring in some MiFis that will provide some internet connectivity to people in the room, but maybe not everyone. So do not assume that you will have an internet connection for that. Our meeting next week begins on Tuesday afternoon. Registration opens at 2:30, and at 2:50 on the dot, I will welcome everyone, and by 3 o'clock we will be into our workshop. We do understand that with people flying in from all over the country and flight schedules and delays being what they are, that you may not be able to arrive right on time. And this is especially important for new members to know that please show up whenever you can. People tend to trickle in throughout the afternoon because of travel schedules, and that is not a problem at all. We're happy to see you whenever you arrive safely at the Marriott Marquis on Tuesday afternoon. Of course, we've already heard about our Tuesday evening dinner, and of course, Jay did a great job of telling you about all of the different social events that are going to be available to us throughout the course of the week. So we are very excited to welcome you to San Diego. And at this time, are there any questions, Anne Marie?
No questions. There is a thank you from Sherry Quinlan and a note that she's looking forward to seeing everyone in San Diego.
Excellent. Then at this point, to conclude our meeting, I do need to take a motion to adjourn the pre-conference webinar. So if someone would like to make that motion, we can move to adjournment.
Helga is unmuted.
All right. Do I have a second to that motion to adjourn?
Lisa is unmuted.
Lisa, are you seconding the motion? If so, we are not hearing you.
It looks like she needs to unmute from her end. She is unmuted from this side.
Yes, I second.
All right, thank you for the second. All in favor, if you would, signal your affirmation of the adjournment.
Actually, we have a vote for this. It should be coming up on everyone's screen.
All right, great.
While we're voting, we have a reminder from Dessa Dawson that those who would like to work in the booth during the actual convention for Necessful need to respond via the doodle poll that she has sent out.
And thank you for that reminder. This is exciting that Necessful will have its very own booth for at least the first time in the 10 years that I've been a Necessful member. All right, those of you who have stuck with us, if you would please cast your vote. We'll leave that open for just a few more seconds here. We do need to formally adjourn the meeting via vote, though.
While we're finishing voting, we have a note from Dave Greer. He said, "Thank you all very much. This was an extremely informative and efficient meeting."
Great. And Dave, we're sorry we're not going to be able to see you in California personally, but I am very pleased that you will be able to join us via Google Hangout for the session on supporting diverse learners. And thank you for your willingness to work with us to bring you in virtually for that very important session, which I believe is taking place on Thursday morning California time and around noon your time in New Jersey.
All right, I'm closing the voting poll. And as you can see on your screen, 94% are in favor of adjournment and 6% decided to abstain.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Safe travels, everyone, to California, and I look forward to greeting everyone on either Tuesday afternoon or Wednesday morning in San Diego. Enjoy your weekend, have fun preparing for your trip, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.